This video is a brief introduction to 4 moves that you can use to evaluate a source. My name is Ben Alloy, I'm a librarian at Phoenix College, and I'll be walking you through these 4 steps to explain what the purpose of each one is and how you can use them effectively. These 4 moves can be used to establish credibility of a source to see if we generally trust it and trust the information in it, to check for accuracy, so that's when you're actually fact-checking certain claims within the source, and also to provide a big picture context, right, to kind of understand the full conversation around that issue or that topic. What 4 moves is not is a checklist, so don't expect to just check a few boxes, yes or no, and then decide it's completely trustworthy or not. That's not how it works. Instead, these 4 moves will help to inspire critical thinking so that you can evaluate each source for yourself. So let's get started. Move number 1 is to stop. Anytime you get a source of information, you want to decide, are you familiar with that source? Do you know the author? Are you familiar with that person? Do you know the publication? Is it maybe a newspaper that you read a lot, right? And also, do you know the type of source it is? Is it an op-ed where it's an opinion piece, or is it a news article where it's supposed to be more or less unbiased and factual? Right? So you want to start asking these questions. If you are familiar with the author and the publication and you trust them, then you're pretty much good to go, right? But if you're not quite sure, then you want to move on to move number 2. That's where we investigate the author and the publication. So you want to get a sense of what is their reputation, right? Are they seen as politically biased, right? Or have any issues in that regard? What is their expertise? So is the author qualified to speak about the topic in an authoritative way? And keep in mind, expertise can take on a few different roles. So someone may have a PhD or a medical degree and be an expert in that field, but also maybe someone just has a lot of experience, right? Or maybe somebody lived through an event, and so they're kind of an expert on that topic in a sense, right? The last thing you want to consider is what might be their purpose, right? Based on their reputation, their expertise, can you get a sense of why they're putting this source out there, right? Sometimes people want to entertain or inform or educate or convince you to think a certain way or sell you something. So you want to get a sense of what is the purpose based on what we know about the author and publication. For move number 3, that's when we'll actually be reading the article or the source, the web page, whatever it is that you have in front of you. And as you read through, you want to get a sense of what are they saying, what are the claims they're making, and then you can go off of it. We call this lateral reading and see, is there similar reporting elsewhere? Or is this the only source that's reporting on this story? And then look at the claims, right? Can you fact check those claims to see if certain statistics or a scenario of events is accurate? And lastly, you want to get a sense of, is this an issue where there's a consensus and there's general agreement about the facts and the truth? Or is there controversy, right? Which is okay, but we have to take that into account so we can consider all sides. Finally, there's move number 4, where we want to track down the original sources. So hopefully your source will talk about where they're getting their information from. Maybe they're quoting a government source, or maybe they're citing a scientific study. So we want to track those original sources down, right? First, we want to do that so we can see, is it accurate? Does the study actually say what this source is saying that it does, right? But also, sometimes the context can change, right? So, for example, if there's a scientific article that talks about a certain chemical that you can find in grapes and it will slow down the aging process, you might have an article in front of you that says, drink wine and you'll never get old, right? That's not really the original context, and that's not really the original meaning of the study. And lastly, you may want to consider, is the original source itself credible, right? And we can kind of go through those 4 moves, because sometimes a source will try to gain credibility by citing other sources that aren't credible themselves. Once you've gone through these 4 moves, you can get a sense of how credible, how trustworthy, and how accurate your source is, and then decide, is this something I want in my research? And remember, the big picture in all of this is to create context to understand the conversation. So as you go through all these moves and you find other sources and you fact check, you are building up your research base, and you're starting to understand, what are people saying? How are they responding to each other? What are the main arguments that are going on? Thank you very much, and don't forget to reach out to the library if you have any questions.